What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, typology stuff. It's been an ENTJ-ish week, and that got me thinking about one of the ENTJ archetypes. And that is the eccentric ENTJ. One of the most important things you need to know about ENTJs if you're going to be dealing with them, or if you are a fan of them the way I am, you need to know one of the key ways in which they express themselves. And expression for ENTJs is important because despite popularly being presented as these singular, independent forces of will, ENTJs spend most of their time subject to other people. And I think that's partially where ENTJ caginess and combativeness come from. When ENTJs are being cagey and combative, which is a fair amount of the time, most ENTJs don't know themselves very well. And they also, and this is a mixture of people do it to them and they do it to themselves, they don't have many opportunities to get to know themselves. I think that's one of the reasons ENTJs are so bad at typing themselves. It's hard to type yourself correctly when you don't have the clearest idea of who you are. Your working vision of yourself comes mostly from the people you are subject to. And also, thanks to dominant TE and auxiliary NI, it becomes easy to go informational snipe hunting. No, I definitely have FE, even though I'm kinda retarded socially and literally, and I have no ability whatsoever to smell the fumes of other people's internal worlds or interpret moods other than by what I am seeing and inferring practically, not emotionally. I have FE. It happens a lot. And the other thing to know about ENTJ identity, this is more of a stepping back and looking at them as a group thing. I've come to view ENTJs as frontier people. If not the Lewis and Clark ass pioneers, then the people who inhabit the Lewis and Clark trails they set down later. Away from civilization, but in service of civilization, laying the groundwork for civilization. ENTJs who get stuck, who don't work problem solvery jobs, tend to go a little cuckoo, or they dronify. ENTJs are at their best when they are dealing with evolving situations and they have the elbow room, the breathing room, to work out their own solutions. And people look at TE and they view it as strictly a materialistic function. That's not the case. TE is more of a way of processing things, dealing with things. This could be an evolving emotional situation. This could be an evolving informational situation. It doesn't have to be jury rigging all the time. Although ENTJs do seem to enjoy a bit of jury rigging. And you need to know these two things we just covered so you can understand why or how one of the ways ENTJs express themselves within what it comes naturally for them to do. When they are in their element, an ENTJ will work to understand themselves, define themselves, using the field they get involved in, or by the personal journey they undertake. I've always thought personal journeys were kind of retarded because all you're doing what is a personal journey? You are figuring out how to tackle a new area of life or developing a new method of dealing with a current aspect of your life. It's not really a journey. But I have no FI whatsoever. I am utterly FI-less. So, of course, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem meaningful to me. To ENTJs, this sort of thing is a big deal. You look at an ENTJ taking a gap year to travel to Vietnam and climb mountains and, I don't know, smoke shit in temples with people in skirts, and you think, what a douche. But to them, it actually means something. ENTJs are like the Nerevarine. They're not the Nerevarine, but they're one who could be. It is a puzzle. And what that means is almost every ENTJ, and I don't know why this is, because it seems to be the case even with the ENTJs who have gone cuckoo or who have droned out. Most ENTJs want to be somebody, and most of them have the capacity at least to try, the faculties to try. And I think they're wired to do that. They need to... Where did I hear about this? I think it's the... God, one of those videos about the book of Job. Months ago, tons of those videos popped up. No, it was Jung. It was... I didn't read it from Jung, but I watched a video about it, and Jung was talking about it. The way Yahweh is supposed to be above humans, but in a lot of ways he's below humans. In a similar way, ENTJs will try to secure their position at the top for the love, acceptance, and approval of all the people at the bottom. But thanks to the limited number of paths to the top, limited number of spots at the top, with how fierce competition is, with how unfair the distribution of certain traits can be, most ENTJs are not going to satisfy that ENTJ drive, at least the way they feel it. And that's where they start to express themselves through personal journeys, or they get very involved in a certain field, or they die, or they drone out, numb it all out. And thinking about it, this would be just a normal, decent ENTJ video. But we're talking specifically about the ENTJ eccentrics. This is another reaction to waking up one morning and realizing you suck. It's all been leading to this. You need everything we've talked about so far to understand what's happening here, so you can be careful. ENTJ eccentrics operate by all the same rules of all the other ENTJs, but their reaction to realizing they're not going to be at the top goes in a different direction. The personal journey is insufficient for them. They need the more extreme forms of approval. Usually these are the ENTJs who had a fucked up childhood, but their brains didn't go the ASPD route, which is surprisingly common among ENTJs. There's probably a reason for that. Or maybe they did go the ASPD route, but they are handling it differently according to their abilities. So they need that higher form of approval, but they also suck at most things, which puts you in a real bad spot. Or they're impatient. You can't achieve excellence in a field, or you don't want to wait. So what they'll do is they'll become used car salesmen for their own souls. Or they will become ringleaders for the circus they turn their lives into. They will select one or a few archetypes people care about, or hobbies people care about, niches or scenes, and then they will visibly and loudly dedicate themselves to that thing in a way that is impossible to ignore. They're also probably going to brush up on soft skills, and then they will sell themselves to people. This is a little tricky to explain. They're not going to be king of the metaphorical land, but they could be the head of this university or the leader of that guild. And they use their depth of understanding of this niche mixed with their soft skills and their natural ENTJ get additiveness to convince Joe Dipshit they are above him a bit. In certain circles, they are someone to be listened to. And then they entrench themselves in the ecosystem, whatever ecosystem they're in, and try to tear down anyone else who seems to be elevated or might be trying to elevate, oftentimes while sucking up to the big boss. ENTJ eccentrics metagame themselves into the illusion of petty power. Because when you dig into whatever niche they've selected to be the utmost authority on, it's almost never important. And the stuff they act like is important, that's not important either. They just know how to say it in a way that makes it sound important. Like, they'll give you an eloquent dissertation on the history of cock rings, and if you've never dealt with this sort of person before, your reaction is going to be, this sounds niche, or maybe even dumb, but it exists, and they care about it, and they researched it, so they must know something. Or other people all of a sudden are now going to be big fans of cock rings because I don't know why people do this. They just say what it seems like the most knowledgeable person is saying, or do what the most leaderly person near them is doing, which is what I mean by you need to be careful around ENTJ eccentrics, because the niche they use to get themselves into this position doesn't matter very much, but it allows them to be an authority on something, and being an authority on anything gives you tremendous power over common retards. So they get themselves into these mid-level power positions using the illusion of their already having power. I recommend caution around them. Don't give yourself away as someone who knows what they are. You be polite, but you mark them in your head, and you remember, they are in your ecosystem, and you stay aware of them. Because they create problems. They will start shit, or they will stir up shit, so they have something to authoritize in front of people over. They will talk without reason, without purpose, a lot, but they're aware it's better if they have something to talk about to illustrate their illustriousness about, and if that thing doesn't exist, then they'll create it. And one aspect of typology I would like to study a bit more, and this is one of the only things about typology I've been excited about in a while, is the way archetypes within the types react to other archetypes within their type. For example, the sort of ENTJ I like a lot really doesn't like the eccentric ENTJ. Immediately knows what they're looking at. And maybe this is the difference between an ENTJ 8 and an ENTJ 4 or 3W4. I don't know. My point is be careful. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.